Okay, Ayubowan, welcome to the second session on training and development. There are two objectives to be achieved by you after studying the session successfully. You should be able to know some methods of training and to understand a systematic training and training process. Methods of training. There are many alternative methods of training available for an organization to do its training of employees. First one, on-the-job training. The training is given by allowing the trainee to perform duties of the job. So we invite the trainee, we ask the trainee to perform the job, and we give the training to the trainee while performing the job, while performing the duties of the job. The trainee has to learn the know-how of doing the job, know-how of doing the job. So this is a popular method of training and is alternatively known as job instruction training, JIT, that is the abbreviation. So indeed, this training can be applied to train managers as well as non-managers. Look at this. Okay, here you can see a picture in which there are two people. This one is the trainer. So there must be an expert to do the training. So that is trainer. And here you can see trainee. Trainee is the person who is supposed to get that learning. So this setting is retail setting in a supermarket. This is cash calculating machine. So you can see here the value, rupees 3,400. Here the bill is coming. So then the trainee is supposed to learn how to operate this machine, how to operate this machine, how to do adding, reducing, totaling, getting the bills and giving the bills, and then collecting money, keeping the money, and making changes. All these things will have to be learned by the training. The job is, we can say, counter salesman in a supermarket. Okay, on the job training. So this training allows the trainee to perform duties of the job. While performing, the learning of the know-how of doing the job occurs. This is indeed a popular method, as I mentioned previously. So by using this method, it is possible to train all the types of employees, managers, non-managers, field employees, sales employees, production employees, professionals. All the types of employees can be trained by using this method. So that is on the job training. Alternatively, this is called job instruction training, which also I mentioned previously. Right, these are the advantages. First one, to gain exposure to job reality. So it is possible to have real job exposure. So that is a major advantage of this method. It allows the trainee to be active. The use of participation principles of participation. That is a learning principle. So can you remember? So I taught you when I was doing the first session on the topic training and development. So I taught you some principles of learning. So which are guidelines for making learning effective, making training effective. So that to allow the trainee to be active, to be active. So then to repeat, that is the use of the principle of repetition, and to practice the principles of practice. So then participation, repetition, practice, and also relevance. That is another very important principles of learning. Then transference, another very important principle of uh, learning. Principle of learning, right? Then not very costly. That is another advantage. There are disadvantages also. So this training does not allow the trainee to get potential to do a future job, to get potential to do a future job. It is not appropriate to train at first some types of employees such as pilots at first, okay, at first. Pilot, for example, so if you take an aeroplane training, driving an aeroplane. So then the pilot. So if you ask the training pilot to enter or get onto the aeroplane and then use the aeroplane for the first time, that is very dangerous. That is very dangerous. So at first time, on the job training is not good for employees such as pilots. Also waiters, waiters in a restaurant. Then another disadvantage: the success of training heavily depends on the quality of the trainer. So if the trainer's quality is bad, then the success of training is going to be bad. So that means the training is going to be unsuccessful. Okay, then look at this one, Exhibit 11.1, proper way to train under JIT, Job Instruction Training. So this was developed based on the material written by Professor Bluick and Professor Hodges. Yes. So this is a specification of how to do on-the-job training. So this is a very useful exhibit to do on-the-job training. First, get ready to teach a job. So decide what the learner must be taught in order to do the job efficiently, safely, economically, and intelligently. Then have the right tools, equipment, supplies, and material ready. So before starting the training, so these things must be ready, and then have the workplace properly arranged, just as the trainee will be expected to keep it. So then instruct the learner by the following 4 basic steps. Step 1, preparation of the training. Put the trainee at ease, then find out what the trainee already knows about the job, then get the trainee interested in learning the job. So that is about use of principles of motivation. Then step 2, presentation. Tell, show, illustrate, and question in order to put across the new knowledge and operations. Then instruct solely, clearly, completely, and patiently, one point at a time. Then check, question, and repeat, and make sure the trainee really knows. Step 2, presentation. Then step 3, performance tryout. So test the trainee by having him or her perform the job. So then here we invite the trainee to perform the job after doing this presentation. Then ask questions beginning with why, how, when, or where. Then observe performance, correct errors if made. So normally trainees make errors. They need to be identified and then they need to be corrected. And repeat instructions if necessary. continue until you know, the trainee knows. You means the trainer. Then is step 4, follow up. So put the trainee on his or her on now. So then the trainer may be there, but the trainee has to be now on the job and then has to perform the job on his or her own. And check frequently to be sure the trainee follows instructions. Trainee follows instructions. Is checking. Of course, checking is done by the trainer. Then third one, step 10, under step 4, the follow-up, the third activity to be done according to this specification, taper off extra supervision. Taper off, reducing gradually, to reduce gradually extra supervision and close follow-up until the trainee is qualified to work with normal supervision. So under training, there is an abnormal supervision, that is not normal supervision. An extra care is there. So then, but when an employee does the job normally, there is normal supervision. There is normal supervision. Okay, then remember, if the learner has not learned, the teacher has not taught. The teacher has not taught. Okay, this is so relevant. This is a good thing, to remember. If the learner has not learned, the teacher has not taught. But this is not applicable to you. Why? Why? So you have to learn. You have to be serious in learning lectures, following lectures, all these. So then the teacher can teach, but if you don't learn, then what will happen? Your learning is not going to be successful. You are responsible for learning. The teacher also is responsible for learning. This is a joint work. This is a joint work. So both you and I are responsible for your learning of human resource management. I can learn, I can teach you very well, but if you don't study, if you don't listen to me seriously, if you don't, follow those learning principles such as repetition, practice, repetition, practice, then your learning is not going to be that successful. Okay, so but anyway, here this is about training, so that is right. Then step, sorry, okay. Apprentice training, the second method of training. So training is given to people who are new to the jobs. In single apprentice training, Adhunikatva Puhunu. Adhunikatva Puhunu. So training is given to people who are new to the jobs. Who are new to the jobs, so which are craft jobs, such as plumber, barber, machinist, carpenter, printer, electrician, and tool and die maker. Achu sadhana. So this training is for new employees. This training is for new employees. There is theoretical teaching. Also, there is practical teaching. So in the classroom, there is learning theory. There is learning theory in the classroom. And then also there is practice in job setting. The first learning theory, then practice in job setting, actual job setting. This type of training has several advantages, such as high levels of participation, will practice, relevance, and transferability. High level of participation, high level of practice, high level of relevance, and high level of transferability. So these are advantages of this apprentice training. However, training cost is high. Training cost is high because there is theoretical learning, also there is practical learning, which will take a lot of time, lot of effort, and lot of money. if not lot, a considerable amount of time, considerable amount of money, considerable amount of effort. Apprentice training. Okay. So look at this picture. That is about plumber services. Plumber services. So these are plumbers. Now they are working relating to pipes, basins, sinks. So indeed they are dealing with water. Okay, look at this picture. This one, an actual barber doing a haircut of a child. So apprentice training involves theoretical learning and also practical learning. So looking at the face of the barber, we can say that this barber is an experienced, more likely an experienced barber. So then to be an experienced, successful barber, so it is important to give a training. So that is usually apprentice training. Right. Then look at this picture. Here you can see this person. This person is seems to be this person seems to be a machinist, the trainer. Then these people seems to be learners, trainees. So they are watching seriously what the machinist is doing. The machinist is making a demonstration, for these trainees to learn. Okay, here look at this picture. So these are trainees under apprentice training. The relevant training should be relevant. Okay, they are training for tool and die maker. Yes, the job, tool and die maker. Okay, third method of training, job rotation. Training is given by shifting the trainee from one job to another job. When I was doing, when I was teaching about the topic job design, I taught job rotation as a method of redesign. So job rotation can be considered as a method of training also. So the trainee is required to work on a certain job for a certain period of time. The period may be 3 months, maybe 4 months, and then he or she is moved from that job to another job. So on this another job, the trainee is supposed to work for a certain period of time. So usually again, the 3 months or 4 months. And after learning on that job for a certain period of time, the trainee is again shifted to another job. So in this way, the trainee is allowed to obtain a training. So this training will enable him or her to perform several jobs instead of performing one job. So this method of training provides task variety, which is an important behavioral element of job design. Task variety that may motivate the trainee to learn effectively. Of course, this method can be used for training managers as well as non-managers. Have a look at this picture, which is about job rotation. The setting is a hospital. So nurse training of a nurse. So here first the trainee nurse is getting training in the ward that is for maternity, that is for maternity, dealing with infants, delivering babies, nursing with delivered babies by mothers. Okay, so then this is in one ward. Here the nurse is getting a training for a certain period of time, assume 3 months. Then after 3 months, the trainee nurse is shifted from this ward to that ward. What is that ward? That is for pediatrics, dealing with children, nursing children. So then the trainee has to learn how to do nursing with children. So in this ward, for another period of time. So that is also 3 months. Then after 3 months, this trainee nurse is moved from this ward to that ward. Here, that ward is geriatrics. That is dealing with older people, older patients, nursing older patients. So then, so in this way, the trainee will be able to get learning how to work in this ward, that is maternity, then how to work in this ward, that is pediatrics, and then how to work in this ward, that is geriatrics. I hope my pronouncing is correct, so don't worry about pronouncing. Right. Okay. Fourth method, vestibule training. Vestibule training. So that is called in Sinhala. In Sinhala, Akrutika Puhunu. Akrutika Puhunu. Training is given in an artificial place. Kutima sthaneka තමයි රැකිය පුහුණුව රැකියාවට අදාළ පුහුණුව ලබා දෙන්නේ. So it involves simulation. An artificial working place is set up. So that has similar features to the actual working place, using actual tools and equipment or equipment simulators. So that is created. So what is created? An artificial working place is created, and the trainee is trained by placing in this artificial setting. This artificial setting must have similar features to the actual working place, using actual tools, actual equipment. Right. Alternatively, vestibule training is called simulated training or simulation. Training of trainees in an artificial setting does not disturb actual operations of the organization. So if you use on-the-job training, there is a possibility of disturbing actual operations of the organization. Assume to train waiters in a restaurant. So if you use on-the-job training, that will disturb current customers. So that is not good. That is not good. But if you use vestibule training to train waiters, then there is no disturbance on customers. So it is true that the organization has to spend a considerable amount of financial and other resources to build separate areas or vestibules. That is there. That can be considered as a disadvantage of this method. So in that way, it is costly. This training method is costly. However, once built, that vestibule can be used for many years to come, and therefore it will be economical then. Okay, look at this picture. Look at this picture. This is inside of an aeroplane. Assume we want to train people to work as pilots. Pilot training. For pilot training, vestibule, this is an artificial situation. An artificial situation just like the actual aeroplane. An artificial situation just like similar to the actual aeroplane inside can be created. Because of the reason that it is dangerous to allow the trainee to use an actual aeroplane. So before allowing the trainee to use an actual aeroplane for driving, that person must be familiar with all these things inside: equipment, tools, various machines, computer programs. All these things will have to be learned seriously by the trainer. So that can be given in an artificial setting, in a vestibule, And after giving that training or that learning, then the trainee can be allowed to get into an actual aeroplane and then use for driving. Otherwise, that will be dangerous. That will be dangerous for the trainee and also the trainer. So this is a restaurant. This is a restaurant. So this picture is about that. Vestibule training waiters. We can develop a model restaurant, an artificial restaurant. That can be also called a mock restaurant. Mock, M-O-C-K, mock restaurant. So at this mock restaurant, the training about servicing customers can be given. Okay, look at this picture. This person seems to be the trainer. This person may be a trainer. So these people are trainees. So then this person is making a demonstration for these people to learn. Okay. Next method of training, program instruction. In Sinhala, Prakamika Adhyayana. So this allows the trainee to learn through self-study, Swang Adhyayana. It involves distant learning, Durastha Igani, distant learning. Alternatively, it is called program learning. So here, by using a study manual, textbook, or computer, or internet, the trainee is supposed to learn the relevant concepts, principles, facts, processes, etc. by himself or herself. So one special characteristic of this method of training is that there is the presence of the trainer, the presence or intervention of a trainer. Without that, the trainee is supposed to learn by himself or herself. So this method allows the learner to learn at his or her own pace. That is an advantage of this method, at his or her own speed of learning, his or her own style of learning. Right. Also, it will relatively be easier to the learner to learn because the subject matter is set up in the way that the learner can learn in small amounts. First lesson, second lesson, third lesson. In order to go to the second lesson, the first lesson has to be complete. So, right. Then there are disadvantages also. There may be trainees who have no ability to learn through self-study. Some people are not used to read and understand. They want to listen to or demonstrations by trainers. They, through demonstrations, by listening. So there are some people who can learn fast or who can learn in the way that is successful. So in fact, the trainee must have a special ability to do self-studies. If that is missing from the trainee, then this method is not going to be successful. Right. Then method 6, case study method, Siddhi Adhyayana Krami in Sinhala. So training is given through a written description of a problematic situation that requires to be analyzed for solution. So training, training is given through a written description. So case is a written description. Of course, that is about a problem or problematic situation. Problem or problematic situation that has to be analyzed for a solution by the relevant training. So by analyzing the case, the relevant training is supposed to learn many things. The case is a description of an administrative situation and usually includes information about the setting of the situation and happening in the administrative situation. According to Professor Stevens in 1996. Okay, so it is a record of an organizational issue that actually has been faced or may be faced by the management of an organization. So some cases are artificial, but some cases are actual cases. Actual cases. It attempts to link between the theory and practice. The theory and the practice. Linking. So in fact, the case sets out problems to be solved by the learner who will be able to apply fundamentals, theories to an actual situation within an organization. So that is one advantage, from a case, the learner will be able to apply theory into practice, the fundamentals, elements that the learner has learned to an actual situation within an organization. Also, the learner will be able to develop his skills in making correct decisions, will be able to support decisions with appropriate and acceptable analysis and justification. So these are the advantages of case study method. Then, however, development of a case is not an easy thing. Development of case study materials is not an easy work. Of course, it is difficult. However, once developed, they can be used for many occasions of training and development. So in fact, case study method is a popular method for training and developing managerial employees. This can be used for non-managerial employees also, but mainly this method is used for managers. Okay, so this is indeed, used by us also, by me also, to teach human resource management and related subjects to my students. So for you also, that's why this method has been decided to use for you, even though yet you have not done any case study because of this unfortunate situation, Corona situation. But anyway, we level best try to teach you to do several cases before we finish this course to you. You're supposed to learn several things, certain things by doing several cases. So, right, I will show you an actual case that you are supposed to learn. Okay, this is a case. So there is a title for the case, supervisory training course. For some cases, of course, there are no titles. But in this case, yes, there's a title, supervisory training course. Then you can see various paragraphs, a description of a hypothetical or an actual situation that involves several problems which need to be identified by you, which need to be analyzed by you, then which need to be solved by you. So the problem solution, problem identification, problem analysis, and then the problem solution. are here. So you can see, so then this is not the time of reading this one and then analyzing and then doing the case. Hopefully, we will have a time. You will have a time to do this actually. So then at the end, there are questions. At the end, there are questions. For these questions, you have to have right answers. Right answers. Okay? All right. Then what is the next method? Critical incident method. Yes. Number 7. Training method number 7. Critical incident method. So this one is case study method. Case study method. HHD.N.P. So this one is critical incident. Avadi Siddhi. What are whether incident? An incident is a short one, short happening. A case is a long happening. A case has several problems. A critical incident has usually one problem, one main problem, or one problem that has to be solved. So critical incident is referred to a short description of a very important event that involves at least a problem needing to be solved, needing to be solved. So this, of course, this method also is used for training and developing managers. In French, et al. Et al. Means others, others. So then define the incident as a short, easy to read description of a situation that typically frames a single issue or points up one particular problem. So using a critical incident sets out a single problem or one particular problem. But if we use a case that sets out not only a single problem, usually it has several problems. Several problems. So a case is longer than a critical incident. But if you identify critical incidents as short cases, it's okay. It is not wrong. It is not wrong. So the typical incident begins with a brief history of the situation, immediately develops a decision-making environment, and concludes with the responsibility for a decision to be made by the reader or central figure in the incident. So then compared with the case study, the critical incident is shorter in length and is lesser in complexity, not having several or many problems. Hence, working on a critical incident, often takes a shorter time, maybe 30 minutes, less than 1 hour. Sometimes, a case can have even 35 pages, 25 pages. So it will take hours and hours to analyze the case. But a critical incident, so maximum usually 1 hour. It might take more than 1 hour, but anyway, so depending on the ability of the learner. Okay, let me show an example of a critical incident. An example of a critical incident. Of course, you have to learn HRM by doing some critical incident. So this is an example of a critical incident. The title is here, The Impatient Train. So then you can see how many paragraphs? Only 3 paragraphs. Only 3 paragraphs. Then at the end there are questions. Here there are 4 questions for which you are supposed to develop answers. So therefore in this situation also there is a decision making involved. Because there's a problem has to be solved by making a right decision. Okay, so this is not the time to analyze this critical incident. But anyway, I hope that we will have the time for that. But at this time, don't get confused, don't get upset. So this, but learn, this is an example. of a critical incident. So at least let us try to do 5 critical incidents and 5 cases. In a normal situation, normally we do more than to our students in the course of this nature. Okay, so then I advise you to read this critical incident and then the case. They have been given in the note sent to you. Right. So therefore, better you read, by taking a dictionary. If there are different difficult words, so then try to learn. Right. Okay, then method training and development, numbered 8. The method of training, numbered 8. Skill builders. Skill builders. කුසලතා සංවර්ධනය. කුසලතා ගොඩනගන අභ්‍යාසය. කුසලතා අභ්‍යාස කියලා කියන්නේ in Sinhala. So skill builders. So skill builder is an assignment or an exercise that aims at allowing the trainee to develop a certain skill or certain skills rather than the knowledge. That's why we, instead of knowledge builders, knowledge, of course, from case study method, from critical incident method. So you can develop both knowledge and skills. So here, mainly skills, skill builders. So skill builders are short individual assignments that can be completed by learners. Okay, so then skill builders are a successful tool for management training. Yes, here you can see. So the learner is given the skill builder and is required to do it. Later, the trainer gives the right feedback. Trainer gives the right feedback. So this is also a very good method for developing skills. So on the job training, of course, the relevant trainee has to be on the job, then has to perform the job. Then skills, the actual skills, can be developed, can be created, can be enhanced. Instead of this, this is in the classroom. So the case study method also, in the classroom we can do that, rather than going to the actual place. So now I am teaching human resource management. So you can learn the practice of human resource management by doing cases, by doing critical incidents, by doing skill builders. You don't need to, become an actual human resource manager to learn such things. But of course, on the job training, of course, you are supposed to be, and then you can learn by or through hand-on experience. But here, there is not indeed that hand-on experience, but there is a certain form of experience that you can get by doing cases, critical incidents, and skill builders. But developing like cases and critical incidents, developing skill builders is also not an easy thing. But once developed, they can be used for many occasions of training and development. Okay, look at this example. Yes, here. Critical incident after this, yes, skill builder. So look at, this is an example of a skill builder that you are supposed to do really. Designing a training program. You can see a sunshine firm that produces garments related products decided to give a supervisor certificate training program to all the supervisors, owing to the fact that the number of grievances and discipline problems have increased during the past 3 years. So there is an actual problem, 2 problems, an increase in grievances and increase in disciplinary problems. Then in order to face those two problems, the company has decided to give a supervisory certificate training program to all its supervisors, first-line managers. The human resource manager asks the management trainee human resources. Now that is the person who is the trainee to design a training program to train all the supervisors. How many? 32 persons with regard to proper management of subordinate discipline and proper management of grievance handling. Then he suggested to develop a one-day training program. So you are required to improve further the program design. So here the U means the training. U means the training. So then this is the program developed, Sunshine Company Limited, supervisory training program. You can see objectives, training contents, methods and timing, learning materials, resource person, place, meals and refreshment, training and payments, and then evaluation. So like, okay, so then you ask, from this you can learn, and then even without, so even without giving this type of thing, so simply you can be asked, not simply, seriously, you can be asked to develop a program. Only few hints. Then you have to develop a program like this. But as far as this skill builder is concerned, a certain good program has already been developed. Then you have to identify good things and also bad things. And then you have to remove bad things. For that, you have to develop again a new program based on this. Okay, so then that is an example of a skill builder. So likewise, depending on the job for which the training is required to be given, so we can develop, the trainers can develop the skill builders, right? Okay, next method, role playing. So training is given by allowing learners to act out a particular situation. So here there is acting. There is an acting. So the trainees have to act. Trainees have to act certain characters which are derived from an actual case or a hypothetical case or a critical incident, or an unsuccessful performance of a certain activity. So like conducting an interview or selling a certain product, also a successful performance of a certain activity. Okay, so then this method is concerned with giving the training to all relevant employees in a group team setting. So these are the steps. Determine a certain situation, then divide the group of the trainees into two subgroups. Okay, so in singular, we call the role playing Bhumika Rangani. So යම් නිශ්චිත ප්‍රායෝගික අවස්ථාවක් සිද්ධියක් නාට්‍යයක අනුසාරයෙන් රංග දක්වමින් දෙන ලැබෙන පුහුණුව භූමිකාහිවත් චරිත රංගනය. So කණ්ඩායමක් ලෙස දෙනු ලැබෙන පුහුණුව. So the peer, so the determine a certain situation. So යම් අවස්ථාවක් සිද්ධියක් ගැටලුවක් නිශ්චය කිරීම එහි විවිධ චරිත හඳුනාගෙන. Okay, then the second step, එක් චරිත පුහුණුවන්නන් ගෙන් කොටසකට ආරෝපණය කරගෙන රංග දක්වන ලෙස නියම කිරීම. Okay, then each trainee of the role playing is required to assume a specific role, party and act. Okay, so then allow the presenting group to perform the role playing. Then discuss critically how each has performed. So then මෙහෙවන්නාගේ විග්‍රහය, පුහුණු කරුගේ විග්‍රහය. So then finally the trainer can give an evaluation and a feedback to improve. The specific words, body postures, techniques, etc. will have to be considered, will have to be criticized. Okay, so then this is a good method. This is a good method of training and developing. So the purpose of this training is to get the trainee familiarized with day-to-day job situation and allow him or her to learn more appropriate behaviors or methods of facing those situations. Of course, this method has high levels of participation. You can see here high levels of participation. The repetition, feedback, relevance, transference, and practice. However, disadvantages, high cost involved in development. High cost involved in development and the time that needs for training. Right. Okay. Then number 10, in basket technique. In basket technique. In Sinhala, Pasa Abhyasa Krami. There's a basket here. There's a basket that includes a number of documents, business papers, such as memoranda, reports, letters, emails, and telephone messages. Usually they would typically come across the manager's desk. So here you can see the definition, the manager's desk, and is required to act on the information contained in these business papers. So if you take, okay, a particular manager, so assume this is training about, this is training on and developing about human resource manager. Then an actual human resource manager. So if you take an actual human resource manager's desk, and then the time as to 1 week. So within 1 week, so what are the letters, emails, reports, complaints, and other things which come to that desk to solve, to make decisions, to solve, to act out. Those documents can be put into one basket. Then this basket can be given to the trainee to study. Then the trainee has to identify various things. Then the trainee has to deal with. If there's a complaint, then what to do with that complaint. If there's a request, then how to fill that request. If there are emails, then how to respond, how to answer to those emails. So likewise, telephone messages, then how to answer. Identifying the relevant problems, all these things the trainee has to do. Then the trainer, of course, will examine, and then finally, when the finally the trainee will give his or her feedback, showing bad decisions, showing right decisions. If the trainee has made a mistake, then the trainer will identify that as a mistake and then will tell how to do it in the right way. Okay, so here you can see this picture. Various documents came in. So these documents are supposed to deal with the relevant manager when actually working. So these are actual things. And the trainee has to deal with actual documents, not hypothetical documents. Okay, so even in this here I have mentioned, if the trainee is for the post of marketing manager, the in-basket should contain a set of actual items, memos, letters, and complaints which come to the desk of the marketing manager. The trainee is supposed to organize the information, put in the basket, then prioritize, then make decisions, prioritize, what are the most important things, what are the next, what are the least important things. So prioritize, make decisions, and prepare responses to the letters and memos to handle the problems presented. Okay, so then the trainee is evaluated on the number of decisions made during the given time or allotted time, the quality of these decisions, and also the priorities used in making them. Okay, so another picture showing this method. So in and out here. Okay, this is a training technique for managers, and it is more practical thing that has a realism, or real exposure to the real work, actual work, and high participation, high relevance, high transference, built-in motivation. Because the trainee gets motivated because the trainee has to deal with the actual things, actual things. So after training, when the trainee is allowed to perform actually, then the trainee has to deal with these documents. So then, if the actual documents come to the trainee under training, so definitely the right trainee, must have the enthusiasm to deal with them. So these are advantages then of this method. So this method is highly involving and covers major features of managerial jobs. But disadvantage, time consuming nature and relatively high expenditure. So they are treated as drawbacks or disadvantages of this method. If the trainees are not many, then it will not take much time and expenditure. However, trainers' feedback is needed for effective learning. So without trainers' feedback, the trainer is the expert who knows how to identify these things, how to deal with documents, how to prioritize, and all these things. So therefore, trainers' feedback is essential. Right. Then the next method, of course, you have been dealing with now. I am doing a lecture. You are listening to a lecture. Lecture method, Desanacramic. Perhaps lecture method is the most frequently used method for training and development. So in fact, not perhaps, really. So based on my own observation also, yes, indeed it is the most frequently used method of training and development, lecture method. So what is a lecture and all these things, it's a verbal presentation of information of a certain subject by an expert who has the right knowledge, who has that right set of information. So then the trainees, who don't have that knowledge, who don't have that right expertise, then a meaningful and organized set of information to a large number of trainees within a short time can be delivered through the lecture method. This is the biggest advantage. That's why almost all the companies use this method as a training method, as a development method. Also, cost per training is very low, very low. However, this method has these are the problems, drawbacks, low levels of trainees' participation, practice, and feedback. Feedback. Okay, as far as this lecture method is concerned, you are listening to me. You have to really follow this one. So then the practice in case of training, yes, trainee participation, because lecture is one-way communication. Yes, that's the thing. One-way communication rather than two-way communication. But however, by using videos, by using various, by doing exercises, trainees' participation can be obtained and can be improved. And also feedback, allowing trainees to ask questions for which the lecturer can answer. The lecturer can answer. Then to a certain extent, the feedback can be created. So therefore, there is a possibility of minimizing disadvantages of lecture method. However, there is no actual job working. That's a big disadvantage. Actual involvement in the actual job is missing if you use the lecture method. Okay, all right. So more than indeed, there are certain other methods of training. So here I have mentioned only 11 methods of training. 11 methods of training. It doesn't mean that there are only 11 methods of training. So there can be many methods. So like assignment, understudy, coaching, sensitivity training, behavior modeling. These are some other methods of training. Teletraining, audio-visual based training, computer-based training, special courses, business games, action learning, outbound training. These are some other methods of training. Of course, this is a general class. You are learning general HRM, not specialized HRM. So learning those methods and of course applying those methods are for the students who specialize in human resource management. But learning these 11 methods I have mentioned, I have taught just. That is for you. That is for you. So please be serious and learn these methods, right? Okay. Now, systematic training and training process. Systematic training is methodological and also it is consistent. So there's a formal order of doing the training. Training can be done informally. Also, it can be done formally. Under systematic training, we are going to learn how to do training formally, not informally. The trainee himself or herself learns tasks and duties of the job. If we do training informally, so the trainee learns tasks, duties of the job through a method called trial and error method. Trial and error method. In Sinhala, that Varada Krami, trial and error method. Here, there is no trained trainer to train the trainee. The trainee himself or herself has to learn tasks and duties of the job. Tasks and duties of the job. This is dangerous. This is dangerous because the trainee may learn inappropriate methods, wrong methods of doing the duties. So this will result in not achieving the various purposes of training. So that's why we have to do systematic training. Systematic training. So which is indeed a process that has a series of specific steps. So actually there are 7 steps in the process according to my understanding. So systematic training process. Have a serious look at this figure. So that gives that figure which is consisting of 7 steps. 7 steps. Okay, so then step 1, identify training needs. Here we are talking about systematic training. Kramanukula Puhunu. Identify training. Make other related training decisions. Anekut adala Puhunu Thirna Ganima. Contents, materials, methods, trainers, duration, time, place, meals and refreshments, traveling and payments, and budget. Then step 6, that is implementation. Kriyatmak Kiri. Then implement, after implementing, yes, then the final step, that is step 7, evaluate the success of training. Again. So these are the 7 steps. So these 7 steps will have to be learned in detail by you. So these 7 steps can be put under 3 stages. Stage 1, planning stage, that has steps 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Then the second stage, implementation stage. that has step 6, and then the third stage is evaluation stage, which has step 7. Okay, now the first step, identify training needs. So without identifying training needs, any training effort should not be done. Otherwise, all the time, effort, money, and other resources will go in vain. Will go in vain. Apathe will go in vain. So therefore, it is essential to identify training needs. So without identifying training needs, we should not do any type of training, because it is possible to occur two major errors. Two major errors. What are these two major errors? Look at this figure. Two major possible errors owing to lack of needs assessment. So if you don't do needs assessment, what is needs assessment? So that is a systematic attempt to determine actual needs which require training and development intervention by the organization. So training and development intervention, training and development intervention by the organization. So it needs to be done objectively as much as possible. Organizational training objectives derived from the needs assessment. So therefore, carefully we have to do the needs assessment, so which is a must. So, right, two major possible errors due to lack of needs assessment, right? First one is training for a wrong, first error, training for a wrong training need. Second error, training owing to wrong performance diagnosis. Yes, diagnosis. So what is this? Training for a wrong training need. Assume the relevant trainees wanted to have a training for interpersonal skills. But the relevant trainees were given a training for English grammar. So English grammar was a wrong training need. What was the right training need? Interpersonal skills. So because of not doing need assessment, the company did wrong training for a wrong training need. Another example, assume our management trainees, they wanted to have a serious training about how to write management reports. But the training was given for English language, English communication, something like that, which has no direct relevance to writing executive reports, management reports, also survey reports. Assume training for a wrong training need, which has to be avoided. Then training owing to wrong performance diagnosis. What is this? There must be a genuine need for training. Generally, training need arises when there is a negative gap between the desired job performance and actual performance. The expected desired job performance, so assume the desired expected job performance is greater than the actual job performance. So we desired to produce 100 units, but we could produce only 50 units. Then there's a negative gap by 50 units. So that is called performance deficiency. Or discrepancy. Unatam. So what is the cause? What is the cause for this performance deficiency? If it is lack of competencies, then of course we have to do training. But if it is lack of motivation, then we should not do training. We're developing a motivational program to motivate the relevant people to achieve the expected performance. If it is lack of obstacle in the system or environment, Then we have to give a solution to remove those obstacles. It's not the the training is not the solution. Did you understand? Did you understand? Right. There can be, there can be several reasons for performance deficiency. Performance deficiency. So one reason is lack of motivation. Another reason is lack of resources. Another reason is lack of competencies, knowledge and skill. Knowledge and skill. So then, if the reason, if the reason is lack of motivation, then training is not the solution. We have to develop a motivational program. Then if the reason for performance deficiency is lack of resources in the environment, then training is not a solution for that. And training only, the training is a solution when there is a lack of knowledge and skills on the part of the relevant employees. Okay, so therefore, training owing to wrong performance diagnosis can happen if we don't do needs assessment. Needs assessment. So training for a wrong training need can happen or may happen if we don't do needs assessment. So therefore, doing a needs assessment is a must. The needs assessment involves conducting three primary types of analysis: organizational analysis, job analysis, and person analysis. In other words, it is possible to do identifying training needs at the organizational level, at the job level, and at the person level. At the person level. So when we do identifying training needs at the organizational level, it is organizational needs analysis. It is organizational needs analysis. So we are going to identify training needs where the training emphasis should be placed in the organization, where, and then what factors may affect training, what factors may affect training. So this question, that is where the training emphasis should be placed in the organization and what factors may affect training, is attempted to answer under organizational needs analysis. Okay, in simple way. So assume our organization has a strategic plan, strategic plan to start a new product, producing a new product. So because of this plan, that is to produce a new product, there will be a certain set of new skills, new knowledge needed, also the relevant attitude. By whom? By production employees. So then where the training has to be given here, in the production department, and also in the selling also. When it comes to selling the produced new product, then the sales people are needed. Then they must have certain new skills and new knowledge about the new product for successful selling. So then in the selling department and also in the production department, because of this new plan, the training has to be emphasized. So in those two departments, then there are training needs. Training needs. Also another example, assume customer complaints. Customer complaints about the quality of the product. Customer complaints about the quality of product have increased. Then quality of the product, that's the problem. Customer complaints about the quality of the product. Then what is the department which needs training? The employees who are in the quality department, the employees who are in producing certain parts of the product. those employees will be the employees who need to be trained. So then in the production department, the quality department, so likewise, we have to emphasize the training, Most of the time, what factors may affect training? Maybe the time, maybe the money. So likewise, those factors, affect training. So if we have more money, then we can give a more rigorous training. If we have less money, then we can't give a more rigorous training. If we have much time, then we can give rigorous training. Loan training we can give. If we don't have that much of time, then we can't. Likewise, okay. Then job analysis, job needs analysis. So we can identify, that is a systematic attempt to identify training needs at the level of job. It tries to answer the question of what should be taught in training so that the trainee can perform the job successfully, satisfactorily. So then, so we have to study the job. Job needs analysis is a detailed study about a certain job in order to identify duties and competencies and then determine training needs. For that, job analysis information such as job description, job specification, and job performance standard statements are useful. So therefore, we have to study the particular job. Assume that is machinist. So then in that job, what are the duties to be performed? Then what are the relevant skills and the knowledge needed? Those things we have to identify. And then for a new employee to perform the job of machinist can be trained based on such identified information relating to duties, relating to knowledge and skills of the relevant job. Of course, by using JD, job description, and job specification. Then person needs analysis. So this refers to a systematic attempt to identify training needs at the level of the employee. It tries to answer the question, who needs training? Who needs training in the firm, and the specific types of training needs. So actual performance of employees, we have to assess also the relevant groups, there are groups, and then we have to compare the actual performance with the expected standard performance. And consequently, performance deficiencies we can identify. Then it is needed to determine whether the performance deficiency can be removed by giving training or not. So if the performance deficiency is owing to lack of abilities or knowledge and skills, then of course we have to, we know that training and development need arises. So therefore the training and development need arises when there is lack of abilities or knowledge and skills. When there is lack of motivation, or when there is lack of resources, or when there is something else, lack of something else, then the need for training and development does not arise. Okay, so the performance evaluation is a major method that we can use to identify training and development needs of individuals as well as groups. So specific performance evaluation techniques like MBO, BOSS, behavior observation scale, which I taught you when I was teaching about performance evaluation, which is a critical function of human resource management. So use of 360-degree method, that also I mentioned. So we'll reveal training needs from different perspectives of evaluators. So under 360-degree, we use several evaluators. So then according to different perspectives of evaluators, like immediate superior, customers, peers, customers and peers. So we can identify training needs of employees, groups of employees. Okay, so then the self-assessment is another technique or another method that can be used to identify training needs at the person level. So on the self-assessment, a questionnaire is developed and then that is distributed among the relevant employees whom we think to train. Then training requests from relevant employees. Employees themselves can make training requests. We don't know this one. We don't know that one. So then please give us a training for this one, training for that one. So likewise, employees can make a request. So those requests can be accepted and analyzed, and then we will be able to develop, or the relevant training manager or the human resource manager or the manager who is responsible for training can develop training programs. Look at this figure, 1110, that is about needs analysis and relevant study questions. So there are three types. Organization needs analysis. Where should training emphasis be placed in the organization and what factors may affect training? Okay, so then we have to study employee complaints, customer complaints, accidents, wastage, productivity improvements, then absenteeism, turnover, all these things, they are relevant to the organization level. So we can study, and then from them, we may be able to identify training needs. Within the job needs analysis. So what should be taught in training so that the trainee can perform the job successfully. So based on this, all the employees can be trained, because every employee is supposed to perform a job. So then, in the job, what to perform, when to perform, how to perform. All these things can be analyzed, and then we can give the relevant capabilities to the relevant employees so that they can perform the relevant jobs successfully. Then person needs analysis, who needs training in the organization, and what are the specific needs. So for this, we have to do studies about various factors or variables like complaints, employee complaints, customer complaints, then productivity, then the absenteeism, accidents, so like organizational needs analysis. And here we need job analysis information, JD and J's. And here, this the person needs analysis. We can, under this we can use self-assessment, request, then the performance evaluation. Of course, performance evaluation is very useful to identify training needs at the person's level, also at the organizational level. Okay, then step 2, prioritize training needs. By doing the first step, it is possible to identify many different training needs. So assume the newly hired management trainees. For newly hired management trainees, we identify 10 different training needs. So ideally, we have to develop training programs to meet all the identified 10 different needs. But it is not practically possible. Why? The major reason is limited amount of resources. Given for training, reserved for training, especially financial resources, and time are limited. So the time is limited, money is limited, you know that. So then it will, the organization will have to develop, will have to meet all the training needs by conducting several training programs at different times. So therefore, there's a need of prioritizing. What is the most important training need? For that, The first training program is developed. Then the second most important training. Then the second training program is developed. Or we can develop one training program to meet three training needs. That we will implement within this week. Then we can develop another training program to meet another three training needs. Another three, they have less priority. They have less priority compared with the first three training needs. So likewise, we have to prioritize the most important from the most important one to the least important one. Then depending on the time, money and all this, we even the availability of trainers, so we can develop training programs. But for the most important reasons, we have to develop and then we have to implement at the right time. Okay. Right. So normally, how do you, yes, the question is then, if we have to do prioritizing training needs, then how to prioritize training needs? What is the base for that? Prioritizing has to be done according to the order of importance. So this prioritizing has to be done by examining the impact of each training need on achieving the strategic needs of the organization, in particular strategic objectives. So strategic objectives are critical objectives. So they are long-term objectives. So therefore, when we do prioritizing, we have to consider the training need, the impact of each training need on achieving the strategic goals. Okay, forget about the strategic goals. Achieving goals of the organization. Assume there is one training need, that is training need A, that has the highest impact on achieving organizational goals. Then for that, first we have to develop the training program. Self-assessment questioning. So you can say this is an example. This is an example that is the self-assessment questionnaire for managers. So you can see the purpose of this self-assessment is to get accurate data about your training needs. So this is a questionnaire that can be given to the relevant managers to identify their training needs. Then the managers are to be honest, and then they have to complete this question. Right. Then is step 3. Establish training objectives. Establish training objectives. So what do you mean by training objectives? They are the expected relative, changes in trainees' behaviors after training. So what are the expected competencies that employees will improve, will have or will improve or into the training program? So answers for these two questions, right? What are the expected relative permanent changes in employees' behaviors after training? What are the expected competencies that employees will have or will improve or into the training program? The answers for these questions, these two questions, are in the form of training objectives. So training objectives refer to targets to be achieved owing to the training, I started this lecture by giving you two objectives. They are the learning objectives that you have to achieve. They are the targets to be achieved owing to this lecture. For example, consider training of sales personnel. So it is possible to establish this one objective, to build the ability of giving all the relevant information of the three products to customers. Okay, now it is clear, right? To build, so what is the objective? To build the ability of giving all the relevant information of the three products to customers. So that means, these salespeople, have to sell three products to customers. Then these people must acquire all the relevant information about these three products. So therefore, to build that ability is an objective of sales training. Alternatively, the objective can be worded in the following way. After completing training, the sales employee will be able to give all the relevant information of the three products to customers within 15 minutes. The time also is there. So the SMART approach, you may have learned about the SMART approach. That is a specific approach that can be applied to develop or establish objectives. S stands for specific, M stands for measurable, A stands for achievable, R stands for relevant, then T stands for time related. Okay, so then here you can see the right, the sales specific. The sales employees will be able to give all the relevant information of the three products. Even to make it more specific, we can even write the specific X, Y, and Z. X, Y, and Z. So then I have made the objective more specific and to customers within 15 minutes. So the time is 15 minutes. So all the relevant information. That also we can specify. Assume there are 10 specific information, 10 items that the relevant salesman has to learn. So likewise is okay, right? Then step 4, determine training evaluation criteria. Determine training evaluation criteria. So training evaluation criteria are factors of identifying success of the training program. So at the end, we have to evaluate. So can you remember, okay, you draw your attention to our process, systematic process of training. The last step, the step 7, is to evaluate the success of training program. To evaluate the success of training program, there must be evaluation criteria. So these criteria will have to be developed before we start the actual evaluation. That's why step 4, at the step 4, we have to do that. What is that? Determining training evaluation criteria. So they are derived from training objectives. So without training objectives, we can't develop right training evaluation criteria. So of course, criteria may be objective or may be subjective. Both types can be used. Normally, both subjective and objective criteria are used. So exhibit 11.7 presents some examples of evaluation criteria which derive from objectives given. So look at this seriously. You have to study seriously this exhibit. Then you will be able to understand objectives of training and then the evaluation criteria for such objectives, specifically. So this is the training objective, the first one. After completing training, the sales employee will be able to give all the relevant information of the three products to customers within 15 minutes. Within 15 minutes. So what are here the two criteria have been identified and given. Time taken to give all the relevant information. That is an evaluation criteria. So we can assess the success of the sales employee with regard to this performance. What is this performance? Giving all the relevant information of the three products to customers within 15 minutes. Assume the actual sales employee, one sales employee could give all the relevant information of the three products to customers within 15 minutes. That's the right performance. So we can rate that performance of the salesman as excellent. Assume another sales employee could give all the relevant information of the 3 products to customers within 30 minutes. 30 minutes. Then that performance can be rated as poor, very poor or poor. Okay, for then the amount of information given, all the relevant information, or half of the information. So likewise, we can evaluate the success of the sales employee's performance, right, by using this criteria. Okay, so then step 5, make other related training decisions. Make other related training decisions. So what are these? Training contents that we have to decide. Training contents refer to all the things which are contained in the training program. Basically, that is the syllabus. That is the syllabus. Training contents, what to teach, what to train. So in simple, contents are the things that trainees are going to learn under the training program. Under the training program. Contents need to be decided after examining training needs identified and training objectives established. Training objectives established. Look at this, exhibit 11.8 that gives specific examples of training contents. Take the first training objective. After completing training, the sales employee will be able to give all the relevant information of the 3 products to customers within 15 minutes. This is the first objective. Then look at here, the training contents, the knowledge. This one is knowledge. That is about getting information and understand. Knowledge about the 3 products, the need of giving information to customers, and all the relevant information of the 3 products. Okay, the knowledge about what? The knowledge about the 3 products, and also the need of giving information to customer. And why should we give the information to customers? Then all the relevant information of the 3 products. That is knowledge. Then attitude. Attitude basically is about believing positively, feeling positively, and tending to behave positively. So then attitude about the need of giving all the relevant information. So our sales employee must have a right attitude about giving all the needed information. So the relevant employee should believe in that, giving this all the relevant information to the customers will make customers happy, will make customers decide to buy. So like believing. Then skill, that is about doing in action. So in giving all the relevant information within 15 minutes. So therefore the relevant knowledge, the relevant attitude, the relevant skills, those 3 things come under content with regard to this training objective. This training objective. Then let us take another one, right? This one. After training, the sales employee will be able to sell 100 units of product X for the next 3 months. And then the knowledge of selling, and selling techniques, and customer behavior. That has to be acquired by the relevant sales employee, who is of course training, or the trainee sales employee. Then belief in and positive feeling and tendency to selling. That is about attitude, right? Attitude about selling. Then skill in selling. So actual selling, the actual ability in selling the 100 units of product X. Okay, so likewise we can develop the content based on the training objective, based on training objectives. Right, then training materials. Training materials. So training materials or learning materials need to be prepared by considering training contents. So then look at this one. So then the knowledge of selling, when we develop training material, then the training material or the manual should include what is selling, the knowledge, then the selling techniques, technique 1, technique 2, so likewise. Then about the customer behavior, how customers, will behave in buying, in buying, how customers behave to various reactions of various responses or initiatives of the salespeople. That knowledge, okay. And the materials may contain textbooks, manuals, handouts, articles, research and non-research, and various forms. Okay, the provision of learning materials will increase, of course, quality of learning of the trainees, and quality of instructing of the trainers also, because the trainers can use those manuals when doing training, So that will increase then the quality of trainers and training methods. I discussed previously 11 training methods. So then the most appropriate training method should be decided to use by considering training objectives and training contents. Sometimes 2 or more methods may have to be used. So in addition to training objectives and contents, factors such as cost, number of trainees, availability of competent trainers, availability of time, ability to increase motivation to learn, and types of trainees may have to be considered when deciding appropriate training methods. Okay, look at, okay, what is this? The exhibit, I think in the note, okay, the lecture method. Lecture method may be the most appropriate for knowledge and attitude aspects of training content given in exhibit 11.8. And the role playing may be the most appropriate training method for skill aspect of the training contents given in the exhibit 11.8. Where is 11.8? This one 11.8. Okay, forget this one, the knowledge about the 3 products, and then the lecture method. That will be the most appropriate one. And the need of giving information to customers, the lecture method. Then all the relevant information, lecture method. So then this attitude, also lecture method. Then the skill, maybe role playing, when vestibule training, role playing, critical incident. Those techniques can be used to give the right escape in giving all the relevant information within 15 minutes. So this one, after training the salesperson, sales employee will be able to sell. The knowledge of selling techniques, and customer behavior. Even critical incidents cases can be used. The lecture method seems to be the most appropriate one. Then the belief in and positive feeling and tendency to selling. The lecture method for this also. Then the skill in selling, role playing, the critical incident, case. Then of course on the job training, actual customers, the relevant sales employee can be asked to deal with actual customers and engaging. Then the relevant trainer can examine, and then can after selling, the relevant trainer can give his or her comments about the practice in selling. Right, then the training materials, okay, then the training methods. Now the trainers. So this should be decided carefully before, because the success of training program heavily depends on the quality of the trainers. So like, success of teaching heavily depends on the quality of the teacher, quality of the teacher. So trainers should be real experts in the relevant fields. And their expertise should be obtained through education, experience, and training. So normally there are three modes of getting expertise. One mode is education, another mode is experience, another mode is, of course, training. So therefore, the trainers, we have to make sure that the trainers are the right trainers. Okay, training duration. So how many hours or days are needed for achieving training objectives? So when we decide the training duration, we have to consider contents. Contents, which have to be delivered during the training to the relevant trainees. Based on the contents, we have to decide the duration. That may be 1 day, that may be 2 days, that may be 3 days. If there are so many things under content, of course the duration is going to be higher. Longer duration is needed. Okay, now training time. So training time refers to dates of training sessions and particular hours of the training sessions. Dates: Sunday, Monday, Friday, Thursday. So likewise, dates of training sessions and particular hours of training sessions. Training time relates to those two things: dates of training sessions and particular hours of the training session. A specific timetable or time schedule needs to be developed, needs to be prepared. When deciding dates and times, holidays and availability of trainers, we have to consider. And if the training is off the job and outside the organization, training centers may decide time. So if an outsider is the trainer, he or she may decide the time. Here it is needed, there's another consideration. It is needed to do deciding whether training is given during working hours or not. Working hours. During working hours or not. During holidays. During poor days. Are we going to give the training? Or after working hours? Working days, but after working hours. After finishing the work. That we have to decide. So normally, if the demands for the employees are very high, the competition is very high, more likely that the training is given after working hours. After working hours. In case of new trainees, new employees. In case of new employees, assume there's a specific period for training. That is 1 month. Then during this 1 month, the new employees are not supposed to perform actual duties for the actual customers. Then no problem. The training can be given. The training can be given during the time that has been allocated for that training. But in case of experienced managers, so who were just promoted to work as top managers, then assume for them there are training needs such as developing strategic plans, implementing strategic plans, exercising transformational leadership or strategic leadership. So these are training needs for those experienced managers who were just promoted to work as top managers. Then are we going to give the training during working hours or after working hours? We have to decide. If demands are high, if customers are seriously waiting and expecting their services or waiting for their services, then the training will have to be done after working hours or during holidays. The possibility of maintaining motivation of the trainees is also an important consideration. And remember one principle of learning, that is motivation. Motivation. If training occurs after the trainee had worked for 8 hours, 8 hours, so it is more likely that training is not going to be effective owing to lack of motivation. Why? Due to tiredness and other personal problems at home. So therefore, if the employee is really tired because of working, if the employee has various personal things to be done at home, so better not to do training after the working hours. Right. Then another decision that has to be made, training place. Training place. So where is the training program to be conducted? To be conducted. Generally, there are 3 places for conducting training. There are 3 places, according to Professor Schule and Professor Youngblood. Yes. What are the 3 places for conducting training? First place is at the job itself. At the job itself. So it means that training occurs on the particular job, on the job training, or job instruction training. So on the job or at the job itself will be needed if training needs are more job-oriented, technical knowledge. And his case, so then if we are supposed to give more job-oriented technical knowledge than his case, then it is better to decide the place that is at the job itself. At the job, it's not outside, right? Second place is on-site but not on the job. On-site but not on the job. For example, in a training room in the organization. It's not exactly on the job, not at the job, but any other location, still within the organization. That may be a training room. So if the type of the training needs is basic grammar skills or writing skills, it can be done on site. On site. The third place is off the site, such as in a university or college classroom, hotel or conference center. So this place is generally chosen for training of human relation skills and training of conceptual skills, planning skills, strategic plans, operational plans, planning skills. Okay. Large organizations may have their own special departments or centers for training. So located inside, within the organization, or outside even, outside. Large organizations they have. Right. Then the next one, we are still talking about other related training decisions, which is the step 5 of our process of systematic training. Systematic training, meals and refreshments. So one option for the organization is not to be worried about meals and refreshments of trainees and trainers. By considering what? By considering meals and refreshments as personal problems. So then personally, trainees and trainers are responsible for providing their meals and refreshments. So then that is not a concern of them, the training manager, the organization, or the human resource manager. But good organizations, however, good organizations are concerned with meals and refreshments of the employees and trainers. Yes. Then this may be a motivator. Then some organizations do not provide meals and refreshments to their trainees, but they provide them to trainers. So then the relevant trainees will have to be responsible for providing their meals and refreshments, but in case of trainers, the company is responsible. This facility depends on financial ability of the particular organization. If that is very high, it is most likely that the organization gives meals and refreshment to its trainees as well as its trainers. And traveling and payments. So it is important to decide whether traveling facilities are provided to trainees and trainers. So assume the training is, yes, if training occurs in a place that is far from the working place, outside, then the organization will have to provide transport facility to all employees. If it is inside, if it is at the job, or not on the job, but still within the organization, in a lecture room or in a yes, in an auditorium, then this need doesn't arise. Sometimes trainees may request transport, trainers, yes, trainers, also trainees possible, may request transport facilities, and then the organization more likely provides it to them, especially trainers, trainers. The payments are to be paid to resource persons, trainers, who are not full-time employees of the organization, who are not employees of the organization. If they are outside experts, then they have to be paid. They have to be paid. And the payments have to be decided. And arrangements will have to be made to give such payments to the relevant trainers at the right time, the right way. Okay, then training budget. This is a financial plan showing in detail how much money will be needed for implementing the proposed training program, the planned training program. The budget, it is about money that has to be spent on actual training. The expenditure has to be estimated for all the activities to be performed in carrying out the training plan. Fees for trainers, allowances for trainees is paid. In some companies they give special allowances to trainees if they really, in order to motivate them to get the training. So expenses for preparation of learning materials, of course, that is there. Then expenses for meals and refreshment is given at least to trainers. Rental and traveling fees. All these things, are the types of expenditure. Types of expenditure. So it is important to estimate the cost of each item, and then finally the total cost of the training as accurately as possible. Then the budget can be presented to the relevant board, the committee, for approval. For its approval and obtaining the right amount of fund. Usually the CEO, the Chief Executive Officer, has to approve. To approve, the Chief Executive Officer does need the plan. That is usually prepared by the manager who is responsible for that training, usually human resource manager. Then is step 6. Step 6 of the systematic training process, that is implementation. So all these steps, all the 5 steps. So what are the 5 steps? Identify training needs, prioritize training needs, establish training objectives, determine training evaluation criteria, make other related training decisions. Okay, these are the steps, 5 steps. So after finishing all these 5 steps, there will be a nice plan that has to be implemented. The plan for training. The plan for training can be formulated by performing all the 5 steps successfully. That plan has to be implemented actually. That is step 6, implementation. So in this step, carrying out the training program, plan or design occurs. Here, a sound supervision is needed to ensure that the implementation of the training program complies with, adheres to the training program as planned. This has to be done by usually the human resource manager or the officer who is in charge of the training program. So there is one thing to be done before implementing the training program. What is that? That is pre-evaluation of trainees. That is pre-evaluation of training. This is useful for performing the final step of the systematic training process. That is evaluation the success of training. Evaluation the success of training. So purpose of pre-evaluation is to ascertain the state of the training in terms of evaluation criteria, so that post-evaluation can be done accurately. Now the post-evaluation, pre-evaluation. Right, under the final step, I will talk about post-evaluation, but here the pre-evaluation. Before we start the training, we should know the conditions, the relevant state of the training. Right. Now the step 7. Step 7, that is evaluating the success of training. So this is also an important, a very important step of training process. But according to my observation of many Sri Lankan organizations which conducted training programs, this is missing. This step is missing. But we spend a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of effort on training. Therefore, we have to make sure that our training is a success. Our training is successful. So our training will really achieve the training objectives. So we have to make sure that to do that, we have to evaluate the success of training. Training evaluation then refers to measuring the degree of efficiency and effectiveness of the training program that has been implemented. So it is the activity of collecting information. Of course, we have to collect information when we do the evaluation. About what? About results of the training program. And we have to measure value of the training program by using such information. Therefore, an attempt is made to answer following questions systematically and accurately through evaluation. So what are the questions? The objectives of the training program achieved or not? What extent were they achieved? So what are the amendments or the adjustments, corrections to be done to the training program? How to improve further success of the training program? Should the training program be continued or discontinued? Abolished, stop, giving it. Right. Okay, so these are the relevant questions for which we have to answer systematically and accurately. Okay, so under the evaluation of the, okay, for the, right. So in fact, these can be, these can be considered as purposes of doing evaluation of the training program. Right. The training evaluation can be done at certain levels. So indeed, there are 4 levels. There are 4 levels. So training can be evaluated at 4 levels. What are the 4 levels? Reaction level, learning level, behavior level, and resource level. Resource level. Go to the first one, reaction level. This is about measuring opinions of the trainees with regard to the training that they have received. So the measuring opinions of the trainees with regard to the training they received occurs at this level. So how well and how far do the trainees like to the training program? Are they happy with the program? Then to what extent are they happy? Or are they unhappy? Then to what extent? So evaluation at reaction level attempts to answer this question. Right. What is the question? And how well and how far do the trainees like to the training program? Right. And getting trainees' responses to the training is possible by administering a questionnaire. For that, we can do. That means at the reaction level, the method of or technique of evaluation, one technique is this one, administering a question. Also to conduct interviews is another way of getting reaction data and information from the trainees. Hence, questionnaire and interview are the two techniques which we can use to do the evaluation of the success of the training program at reaction level. So look at this exhibit. So that gives an example of trainee reaction questionnaire. Trainee reaction question. So this type, you can see here the purpose of this assignment or this assessment, right? This assessment is to get accurate. Of course, this is a kind of assignment given to the relevant trainee after training. So then the purpose of the assessment is to get accurate data about success of the training given to you. So you means the training. Okay, so then here there are certain statements which are about, assessing the quality of the training program, The reactions, normally these things are, these questions are about training contents, training materials, training methods, training duration, training place, training timing, even meals and refreshments, about the quality of trainers, the more appropriate aspects of training, the more inappropriate bad aspects of training, then suggestions for improving the training or. So here the suggestions you can put here, right? Please mention any suggestions. If you are the trainee, then you can put any suggestions that you can, give for improving the future training. Okay, so then for very high we can give 5 points. Then high we can give 4 points. Then for moderate we can give 3 points. Then for low we can give 2 points. And very low we can give 1 point. So and then the responses we can analyze. Then we can make conclusions. The final conclusion, whether the training program was successful or not in terms of the reactions of the trainees. Right. Then the second level at which the evaluation of the success of training program can be done. That is learning. At this level, evaluation attempts to assess the degree to which the trainees have learned from the training. To what extent did the trainees acquire the relevant knowledge, attitudes, and skills because of the training? So, owing to the training, to what extent the trainees' knowledge has increased, trainees' skills have increased. That we want to assess under this level. So, typically, learning is measured by examinations, even by interviews also. We can do this. Right. Then the behavior, the third level, at which the evaluation can be done. At this level, the evaluation attempts to assess the degree to which the trainees have adopted appropriate behaviors learned from the training to their jobs. To what extent did the trainees develop a relative permanent change in their behaviors on the job because of the training given, because of the training program given. So normally, can you remember the definition of learning? So that is about a relative permanent change occurred within the employee. So after training, the employee's behavior should be different. In fact, should be positive. For example, assume before the training, the employee was late frequently, but after the training, the employee is never late. never late, or hardly the employee is late. That behavior. So before the training, the employee could not make customers satisfied. But after the training, the employee could. That behavior, a good behavior, good performance evaluation system can be used to assess the trainee's job performance. Trainee's job performance, good performance evaluation. Okay, now the levels, there are 4 levels. There are 4 levels at which we can do the evaluation of training. Evaluation of training. So level 1 is reaction. For that we can use a questionnaire, self-administered questionnaire. We can use an interview technique. Then at the learning level, we can use examinations. Also we can use interviews. Then the behavior level, performance evaluation. So we have to use performance evaluation to judge whether the behavior of the trainee has changed in the expected way because owing to the training program. Okay, then the final level at which training, the fourth level at which training evaluation can be done is resource. So at this level, evaluation attempts to assess the degree to which the organizational objectives have been achieved owing to the training program. To what extent did the organization achieve its objectives relating to productivity, turnover, absenteeism? Has productivity increased because of training? Has turnover reduced because of training? Has absenteeism reduced because of training? Have accidents reduced because of training? Has quality increased because of training? So likewise. Okay, so the evaluation can be done at this level by comparing records of organizational business performance criteria. So these are the criteria, business performance criteria. So before and after training. Before training, what is the number of accidents? After training, what is the number of accidents? Okay, so we have to know. So then the care should be taken to determine the exact effect of training on the organizational performance criteria, not because of other factors like incentives. Incentives also can increase sales, can reduce waste, can reduce cost. Then the leadership also is a determinant of customer satisfaction, not only the training. Okay, so then care has to be taken to determine the exact effect, exact impact of training on increasing customer satisfaction, on reducing waste, on reducing cost. Okay, this we have to discuss further under the next level, that is under the next subsection. Yes, this one. Designs of training evaluation. Another section under training evaluation. Designs of training evaluation. So we have done levels of training. We have done levels of training in singular. Again, star levels of training. So basically there were 4 levels: reaction, pratikriya, learning, ganima, behavior, charyav, resource, pratipana. So now designs of training evaluation. Again, master. So what do you mean by again master? Again master යන්නේ අදහස් වන්නේ පුහුණු වැඩසටහනක සාර්ථකත්වයේ මැනීම පිණිස යොදාගත හැකි විකල්ප ඇගයීම් ආකාරය. ඒවත් ප්‍රවේශය. So designs of training evaluation refer to approaches or styles of assessing the impact of training on these levels, reaction, learning, behavior, and resource. One design, post mission, in single paschat many. So this means assessing success of the training program after ending it. This design can be done at any level of evaluation, the reaction level or learning level, so at any level of evaluation. So is this a good approach to determine real success of a training program? Of course not. It is not, as it is not possible to know exactly whether there is an improvement with regard to trainees without knowing their previous states before training. So under this, there's no attempt to know. There is no attempt to know trainees' previous states before training. You see figure 1111 for a pictorial presentation of this design, post mission. You can hear the training, then measure. So before training, there is no measure, but after training, there is measure. So then, without knowing the states of the training before training, how can we really know whether any improvements have occurred? Any improvement has occurred, or improvements, whether improvements have occurred with regard to the degree of learning, with regard to the reaction, with regard to the behavior, with regard to the results. Okay, so then pre-post measure, that is the second style of evaluation or design. Pre-post measure, पूर्व पश्चात many, pre, पूर्व, post, पश्चात. Pre-post measure means assessing the training program success before the training and after the training as well. So pre means before, while post means after. So this approach is possible to apply at any level of training evaluation, learning, reaction, behavior, and results. So under this method, or under this approach, so it is possible to know whether some changes have occurred or not due to the training program. So therefore, this approach is better than the first approach, that is post-mission. Post-mission. If you look at this one, this figure, 11, 12, pre-post measure. So here the training. So before the training, there is measure, evaluation. Then after the training also, there is measure. Before the training, assume, before the training, the number of units sold in case of the salesman, assume 50. Then after the training, 100. Now we can compare the post value with the pre-value. Here, post value is 100, pre-value is 50, and then there is a change, positive change by 50, suggesting that sales training was successful. However, as far as this approach is concerned, there is a limitation, big limitation. However, it is not possible to mention here that this approach is a more appropriate style or design. Why? The reason is the inability of saying accurately that the changes occurred are due to the training program. Okay, in this example I told you, in case of the salesman, before the training, the pre-value was 50. After the training, the post value was 100. And then there is an increase by 50. Whether this increase has happened because of training itself or because of something else, that we don't know. Exactly we don't know, we can't find by using this style of evaluating. So that may be owing to motivation, high level of motivation of the salesman, or Maybe customer change, the number of customers increase. That's why the increase happened by 50. Not really, the training was really useful to make the trainer sell a higher number of units. Assume the training did not result in that way. It is because of the increased number of new customers. And then because of the increased number of new customers, the number of units sold increase. It is not owing to the training given. How do we know exactly that? By doing the third approach. Okay, now third design, that is pre-post measure control group design. Pre-post measure control group design. Palit control. So this design allows to determine the exact impact of training on learning, the exact impact of training on behavior, the exact impact of training on results in a reasonable way. So this involves doing an experiment. So there are two groups here, control group and experimental group. So what is the control group? That is the group of trainees to which training is not given. So what is the experimental group? That is the group to which the training is given. So training is given to a group that is called experimental group, and training is not given to another group that is called control group. So at least there must be two groups. Right. Then look at this figure, figure 1130. 1130. Pre-post control group design. So here the experimental group, you can see training. Before the training, there is mission. Then after the training, there is mission. Then for control group, there is measure, but there's no training. Here there is training for experimental group. But for control group, there's no training. But after no training also, measure is there. That means here training is given. So then before, so these are two groups. These are two groups. So before training to experimental group, measuring performance of control group, also measuring performance of experimental group, done. The measuring is done. Okay, then after training, given to experimental group, measuring job performance of experimental group is done. Measuring job performance of control group is done. So in this way, exact impact on, in a reasonable way, the exact impact of training on results, on behavior, on learning can be determined. Okay, now an example. The ABC company implemented a special training program to its sales employees. Following table gives pre-post assessment results with regard to the experimental group and control group, each of which is composed of 15 sales employees. So the company is ABC. Training is a special training program, sales training program given to sales employees. So there are two groups, experimental group and control group. The experimental group is composed of 15 sales employees. Control group also is composed of 15 sales employees. So examine table 11.3. Pre-post assessment results. So evaluation criteria here. There are 4 evaluation criteria. The number of units sold, the number of new customers created, the value of collection of credits as a percentage, the number of reports submitted, submitted. Okay, so the number of units sold, number of new customers created, value of collection of credits as a percentage, the number of customer reports submitted. There are 4 criteria used for evaluation. Right. Here we have the control group, job performance, average per month, before training, after training. And here experimental group job performance, average per month, before training, after training. Here also 15 people, here also 15 people. So then the average of the 15 people. So with regard to this one, the number of units sold 52. Here also 52. So usually before training, given to the experimental group, all the people, the total number is 30. So then the job performance of each one was calculated. The number of units sold by each salesman was calculated, and then each person's number was added, and then by getting the total number, so that was divided by the number of salesmen, that is 30. That is 30. Okay, so then the 52 came in that way. 52 came in that way. Here also 52. So when we started, then this value is same for control group and the experimental group in this exam. Then after training, 61, the number of units sold by salespeople after training. So in fact, there was no training here. But the after training means relating to this one, experimental group. So then in case of experimental group, before training 52, then after training 104. Okay, so here the after training means relating to experimental group. Okay, please understand in that way, because there is no training given to control group. 104. What is the difference? 43. So then by 43, experimental groups performance is better. In case of number of units sold, or with regard to number of units sold. Then go to second evaluation criterion, number of new customers created. After the training, 9 in case of control group. After the training, in case of experimental group, that is 15. So what is the difference? 6. So then experimental group is better than control group by 6. Then value of collection of credits as a percentage. That is the third criteria. Value of collection of credits as a percentage. So in case of control group, that is 64%. But in case of experimental group after training, 87%. 87%. So what is the difference? 23%. This is better. Experimental group is better than the control group by 23%. Yes. Number of customer reports submitted. After training also, no single report submitted by the control group, but the experimental group submitted one report. So then experimental group is better than the control group with regard to number of customer reports submitted. Then overall, then what can you say? What can you say? If I ask this question, was the sales training successful? Was the sales training successful? Or did the sales training impact significantly on sales employees' job performance? Sales employees' job performance. So that was measured by using these 4 criteria. Job performance was measured by using these 4 criteria. Okay, so as per the table, there are significant differences between the control group and the experimental group. A significant improvement has occurred in the experimental group. So therefore, it is possible to conclude reasonably that the training program implemented was successful or was effective. So therefore, we can recommend this training program for the control group also in future. In future. Okay, all right. This is the end of the second part on the topic training and development. Okay, dear student, we will meet you in future as usual. Best wishes for your studies.